I can remember one forum somewhere down east. I tried to think of it today coming home from Raleigh. And I went to the public hearing because I did that kind of thing. I was really a listener and loved the process. And I don't remember who was at the head table, but somebody from government was there spouting what the rules and regulations were. And you had this whole side of the hall full of commercial fishermen who'd worked all day in their boots and their fishing clothes. You had their wives there. You had folks who understood the struggles of the industry with the lack of the catch. And on the other side was a busload of sports fishermen that had come from all over the state, maybe all over the Southeast, to articulate very aggressively their positions. And so it was really quite interesting to me at the time, and even now in retrospect, to realize that that was the emergence of people, real people, individuals uniting together, and through some kind of concerted mission, making a huge difference in outcomes. And that just happened. You also had a marine fisheries division that, from my perspective, was totally incompetent, and a fisheries commission that seemed either so pro-commercial or conversely pro-sport that there was never any ability to come together around consensus. You had the lack of the fish, the first numbers where the whole fishing catch, whatever those words are, was declining consistently. You had people like Mark talking about leases, and you had folks like me talking about the next generation of fishing being aquaculture. And so you had all these things, and folks felt so threatened, and the tension was so high that the only thing that we could do was move forward with some kind of legislation, I thought, that would at least put a hiatus out there, a brief timeout, where we could intelligently and perhaps without emotion evaluate where we were and where we wanted to go as a state. I think there were a lot of united groups. I think that was part of the tension. I mean, you had a group of sports fishermen who were hell-bent on having it their way. You had a group layered on top of the Sports Fishermen Association who wanted to start any kind of trawling. There were just so many ideas out there because in the early 90s and the mid-90s, you began to see the emergence of economic data that was tied very closely to the tourism industry and water quality. And you had the evidence that sport fishermen were critical to coastal economies. And for the first time, that data began to drive some of the decision making at the local level. And you put that in conflict or in tension with commercial fishermen families who had been making their living from this catch, this hard work. It's every year I would go to the passing of the fleet and see the wreath thrown in for the fishermen who had been killed during the year. Folks in the general public who didn't know a thing about commercial fishing began to realize that the fish they ate from the fish market came from somebody's catch. And these were people, salt of the earth people, who were struggling to keep their economy alive. It was no different than a local drugstore being scared of CVS. It was the same kind of tension. And so all of those conflicting interests at that time, as conflicting interests in the 21st century, at our time, make it impossible to leave the emotions at the door and come in and have an intelligent conversation that was geared toward a common solution. There were no common solutions. It was one way or the other one. Close down commercial fishing or close down sports fishing. And that's where the moratorium came from. The tensions were unbelievable.